Alright, hello and welcome back. Today we're looking at an Aspen AD-38. Probably like a lawsuit model from the 70s. We got really fancy inlays on the fingerboard. We got a brass nut and a funky cool font for the logo, as well as a leaf. And let's take a look inside, see what the label looks like. Alright, there you can see it says AD-38, and I really should have got a picture of the neck block because the serial number and the label will reveal what factory it was built in. The customer brought it in for a setup. He wanted the action lowered, and I took a look at the saddle and it was almost maxed and the bridge was lifting. So I told him, I got a plan. Don't worry, here's what we're going to do. We're going to reglue the bridge, and in doing so we're going to remove material off the bottom, which naturally will make the action slightly lower, and then I'm going to bring that saddle down to its full potential, and in doing so I will probably have to ramp the bridge hole pins so we have the right amount of break angle. So here you'll see me heating up the bridge with my heater, just checking to see how hot everything's getting. And I did this for a long time without heat, but I really do think the heat helps. Why would I do it without heat? I don't know. Sometimes you just don't want to heat up the guitar. You know, that heater gets really hot, but I've been digging it so far. And I'm just working the palette knives in. Just got new palette knives. I was using ones that I had made out of old butter knives and painter spatulas and stuff for a long time. These are really useful. I'm just working it in, and I'm doing it from one side, and then I'll move around to the other side. And in other words, I'm not trying to stick that palette knife all the way through, because you could catch some plies on the other side. I do believe it's a plywood top. Don't quote me on it, but pretty sure. Even if it wasn't ply, your palette knife could go through some of the fibers on the other side of a solid top. Sure, you know. So just trying to be careful. Just like when you drill, when you open up tuner holes, you don't want to go like all the way through. Just drill halfway on each side. Better safe than sorry. This was a weird adhesive. It kind of looked like bubble gum as I was lifting it up, sticky and white. Then as it cooled, it looked more like a resin that was super hard, you know, like glass or something. And here I'm just using my micro chisel to scrape on the inside of that score line. Then I'm going to remark my score line in some places so I could see it better. Sometimes the light can play tricks on you. You don't want to be scraping away on something that's not the line. And you can see there, obviously, there's lacquer on the top, so the bridge was not making contact with any wood. Wooden bridge was glued to lacquer, so it was never on there very good to begin with. So when we glue it back, it's going to be wood to wood. It's going to be really good bond. This can be kind of tedious work, but it's rewarding if you take your time. And I'm not trying to take off any material here really other than the lacquer. The lacquer was pretty thick. Now, I'm not even sure if it was lacquer. In fact, that might be more of a poly. I think in the 70s, depending on the factory, sometimes they did a little experimenting and they might do the top with poly and the neck with lacquer. Using my sanding block. I did some off camera, but I got this really clean. Obviously, you need it to be clean and flat for a good bond, so that's what I did. Alright, and then you could see the top of the bridge, there was some blushing. So there was some poly on the top of that bridge that reacted to the heat, and you get blushing. If you've ever seen anybody do a neck reset using steam from an espresso machine or something like that, sometimes there's blushing near the neck joint. So that happens when you're introducing heat, especially steam. So yeah, so I'm just taking the finish off using some 320. I could have went harder, but just trying to be careful. And I'm pretty allergic to the rosewood dust. I wouldn't say like hives or like allergic reaction, but it makes me sneeze and it makes my nose run pretty much all day until I go home and take a hot shower, even then. So yeah, just trying to remove that dust and be careful about it. I'm not sure if it's the same for everybody, but certainly for a few other people in my shop as well. Then I'm going to scrape that resin off the bottom, trying to find a sharp corner on my scraper. I need to sharpen that thing. Alright, and then my best friend in the shop, the belt sander. You can do everything from shaping a neck on this, or doing nut work, saddle work, in this case flattening the bottom of a bridge. You could shape your braces. It's just endless, but it's also the most dangerous tool in the shop because it doesn't seem like it's all that dangerous, so you know, your guard's down, but just be careful. Alright, the top of the bridge before buffing it. And that's the wheel that we use mostly for metal. That's what the black is in the wheel. It's like metal shavings, but it does great on raw wood like this. So it's gonna shine it up. There's all kinds of compound inside that wheel. And it's spinning really fast, this one. You can see it's already got a shine. Do it some more. Okay, starting to look the part, like glass. Alright, then I'm going to take it to the fine buffing wheel and go for it some more. Make it real shiny. Alright, we got the LR Bags I-beam. Look at that thing. It's literally like an I-beam, and it's got to come out. Because when I glue the bridge back on, the caul needs to go where the I-beam is. So that pickup's not very good to begin with. I don't think it sounds that great. But we're going to take it out and then put it back in. It literally looks like an I-beam. What a trip, right? But it's like a piezo element. Basically, the Hi-Fi is a updated version of that. It's actually an updated version of the Pure Mini, even though that's K&K. I think that's where they got the idea. The K&Ks suck, though, in my humble opinion. Hot take, watch out. That tape is super strong. I probably shouldn't have put that big of a piece on. And there you can see the caul. Went right where that I-beam was. Now we're going to butter up the top where the footprint of the bridge is. Then I'm using a lacquer pen there just to hit the edge, and it's like the exact color of the top. It's like the vintage amber one, and that just helps get rid of that ghosting line from the score. And I'm using Murray's. I usually use it on my hair, well, sometimes when I'm out of the water soluble stuff, but I'm using it to grease those drill bits I'm using as locating pins. And if you've ever used that stuff on your hair, you know it takes like 2 weeks to wash out. If you do want to wash it out, you got to use like dishwashing soap. Strong stuff, but it helps the glue not to stick to those pins. The next day, removing the clamps, seeing where we're at and how we did. Got some glue in the holes, so I'm using those same drill bits to drill back out those holes, putting in the brass pins. Let's hear it. Certainly sounds kind of like a D-35, even though it's not a three-piece back. Does have that vibe, like it's got some growl, some low end. Just doing some nut work, hoping that the brass nut doesn't dull my files too much. And I'm taking the saddle down to the nitty gritty. I don't know how much I took it down, probably like, I don't know, 20 thousandths. Knocking off the edge. That's really important to do if you have an under the saddle pickup so there's no dead spots. Putting on my safety glasses. Using a 70s Dremel to ramp the bridge. I knew that there was little to no break angle near the treble side, so I ramped that closer. Obviously all this work is just to avoid a neck reset, and definitely did. Where the action wound up was perfect. If someone wanted to, they maybe could have took more off the bridge, but I don't like to because it makes the bridge weak. So the shop I work at's been around 50 years, and we have new old stock I-beams double stick. One of the advantages of working at an old shop. If you didn't have that, I suppose the double stick that you trust will work for that. You just have to cut it to fit. And I'm going to put super glue on the surface that I'm going to stick the I-beam to. This is so that it doesn't stick to, fibrous, dusty, wood. It's just going to fall off. So this has a really glassy surface to stick to. Oh, that's a pallet, right? That's funny. And here we're going to take the inlays down. They were high. They were all sticking up high. If this was a custom job, it was pretty good work. But I suspect that it was from the factory. I think this might have been one of those ones that came out of the higher end shop. I was reading on the Tokai forum. It was either from one factory or the other. This one certainly seems like it's just totally spec'd out. Couldn't find any information on this one online. I found the AD-38, but not with all the bling stuff on the fingerboard. This is Mr. Joe Amato, Picket Man. I wasn't there when the customer picked it up. I hope he liked it. The goal was met. The action is lower and the bridge is glued down. And it's a nice sounding 70s Aspen. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya. Later.